Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
We go back to June 25th, 1946 for an episode of the summer show Encore Theater. And this episode stars Robert Young, called Green Light.
The Shenley Laboratories, producer of Penicillin Shenley and Shenley Pharmaceuticals, presents the Encore Theater. The Encore Theater play tonight, Green Light. Our star is Robert Young. Tonight, Shenley Laboratories presents another in a new series of great dramatic programs. Some of our stories are fact, the struggles and accomplishments of great men of medicine. Others are fiction, stories of devotion to an ideal, individual heroism, or great courage. By these programs, Shenley Laboratories would remind you that medical science and progress is not cold, impersonal research or pages of statistics, but a warm human story told in living terms, whether it's the life of one of medicine's immortals or the simple, everyday record of service rendered by your own physician. Now, Green Light, starring Robert Young as Dr. Newell Page, and with Pedro de Cordova as Dean Harcourt. Green Light, the story of a doctor.
Newell Page, surgeon, Bay Tree Hospital.
And of a girl.
Phyllis Dexter. I hated Dr. Page. I thought I would always hate him.
The story, too, of a nurse.
Frances Ogilvy, staff, Bay Tree Hospital. I loved Dr. Page. I thought I would always love him.
The story of a woman of great faith and courage.
My mother, Mrs. John Dexter.
And of a great religious man, Dean Harcourt of Trinity Cathedral.
Man's progress in life is not steadily onward. Sometimes he is stopped by something that is bigger and stronger than he. Something he cannot understand and over which he has no control. That's something I like to think of as a red light, flashing a halt to the forward surge of his life. And I like to believe there's a power which controls that life, which knows in its infinite wisdom that sometimes man must stop to learn through suffering before going on. For it is as inevitable as time that man progresses to a better future, if not for himself, then through his suffering for his fellow men. When he has learned this, the signal changes, and the green light frees him to resume his inexorable march into eternity.
You have been listening to...
I'll turn it off now, Dr. Page.
What would religion be without music?
There was religion long before there was music.
I'm sorry. The usual greeting for the doctor is, and how is the little lady this morning?
And I suppose the usual answer is, terrible, Doctor.
But since we both are unusual people, I'd say your pulse shows marvelous repose for a patient facing surgery.
You can thank Dean Harcourt for that.
I do. Just as I'm thankful for anything that gives a patient courage and confidence.
A shorter word for courage and confidence is faith.
Whatever it is, you'll need every bit of it now.
More bad news?
Oh, nothing really serious, except that, well, it's not easy to prepare oneself mentally for an operation. Sometimes a postponement can cause a harmful reaction. What I'm trying to say is...
You're trying to tell me my operation has been postponed?
Yes, Dr. Endicott has been detained in Milwaukee. He'll be here as soon as he can.
Milwaukee's a beautiful city. It's always seemed full of music to me. Years ago, we used to go there to hear the community singing.
You make it work, don't you?
No, I simply let it work.
How simple things would be if we all had your faith. I'll let you know about the operation as soon as I possibly can.
I know you will.
any word of Dr. Endicott yet, Miss Ogilvy?
No, Doctor. They can't seem to locate him.
Here are Mrs. Dexter's x-rays, Newell.
Thanks. Good Lord, look at that. She can't hold out much longer. We've got to do something.
We'll have to wait for Endicott. She's his patient.
We can't postpone this operation any longer. Her life is at stake now. I'll phone surgery.
Are you crazy?
Not unless these x-rays are.
Surgery.
Surgery, this is Dr. Page.
You can't do that. Endicott will...
We'll operate on Mrs. Dexter immediately. Plan, Miss Ogilvy.
Yes, Dr. Page.
Forceps.
Dr. Page?
Yes, Dr. Endicott.
Thank you, Doctor. If you will assist me, I can take over now.
Yes, sir.
The forceps, Miss Ogilvy. Dr. Page, make the tie, please.
She's bleeding badly. Quick.
Well, I'm afraid that's that. I did everything I could.
She shouldn't have died, Newell. You were doing perfect work. If Endicott had been less upset...
I'd rather not talk about it.
I saw exactly what happened, and I'm going to tell everybody the truth.
Don't you think it's Dr. Endicott's privilege to make his own statement first?
Come in.
Hello, Dr. Endicott.
Oh, Newell, glad you came in. I've been wanting to talk to you. Sit down. Nasty business is Dexter death. I've been trying to convince the board of directors that her death was an unavoidable accident. It was unavoidable, wasn't it?
No, sir. For some reason, you cut the pedicle too short for safe ligation. I couldn't make the tie, and the hemorrhage resulted. It should never have happened. The problem now
I
is...
probably shouldn't have stepped in on the operation, realizing the terrific strain I'd been under. We all love Mrs. Dexter. I felt that her life was my personal responsibility, but all planes had been grounded on account of weather. I've moved heaven and earth to get here in time. I haven't slept in 2 days. Too tired.
I'm sorry, sir.
A split second, woman dies, and a whole career dies with her. A split second is against the 40 years I've given to medicine. I can't be judged on one operation out of thousands, Newell. I can't.
Newell.
Hello, John. What time is it?
Time for you to pull yourself together. Get down to the hospital and tell Endicott and the board where to head in.
I can't do that.
Why not?
What do you want me to do? Stand up before the board and say, dear, dear, kind gentlemen. It doesn't matter to me that Dr. Endicott taught me everything I know about surgery. It doesn't matter that Dr. Endicott is one of the finest surgeons in the country. It doesn't matter how many lives he's saved, how much pain he's eased, how much comfort he's brought. No, none of that's important. Just me. I'm the only one who's important. Big, important Dr. Page.
I know it's tough, Newell, but you've got to protect yourself.
A split second. A woman dies and a career dies with her. That isn't right either. Endicott's a human being, too. He's not infallible.
That's no concern of yours. If you resign, you admit that you were responsible for Mrs. Dexter's death.
Exactly.
Well, that clears Endicott completely.
Right.
Confound it, you sound as if you were going to resign.
I have, already.
Dean Harcourt. I'm Frances Ogilvy. I was the nurse on the... I was Mrs. Dexter's nurse.
Oh, I see.
She always listened to your broadcast, and I had to talk to someone, so... You see, I know what happened in that operating room, and Dr. Page won't defend himself because of professional ethics, and I wanted to speak up, but I thought I should talk to someone first.
No man makes sacrifices without reason. Whatever that reason may be, it's in itself compensation for his suffering.
But why should Dr. Page sacrifice himself for Endicott?
For the moment, that's Dr. Page's problem, not yours. He must have had good reasons, otherwise he wouldn't do it. There's nothing you can do except respect that reason.
I see. I've taken a lot of your time. Is there something I can do to repay you?
Yes. Phyllis Dexter is waiting to see me. She's pretty upset about her mother's death. Before I talk to her, I want you to take her to the little anteroom where you were taken. Ask her whatever questions you wish. Then come back to me and tell me what she says.
just throw your coat anywhere, Phyllis. Sorry, the apartment's a little messy.
Oh, it's not messy at all. I feel much better after talking to you, and it was very kind of you to invite me over.
Not at all. I've got some coffee on. Will you answer the door, please?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was Miss Ogilvy's apartment.
It is. Come in. Who shall I tell her is calling?
No. Hello.
Oh, Francis.
Well, come in. Can I check your coat?
No, thanks. I can only stay a moment.
Perhaps I'd better go now. I had no idea you were expecting a visitor.
I wasn't. He's the last person in the world I ever expected to see here.
Well, as a matter of fact, I didn't expect to be here myself. I was out walking in the rain when suddenly, to my surprise, I found myself in front of your house.
Miss Phyllis Dexter just returned from England today.
Phyllis Dexter?
Miss Ogilvy sort of kidnapped me away from myself.
I wish she could do as much for me. That is, I've got to run along. It's an appointment.
Miss Dexter, may I introduce Mr. Walker?
If you're as nice as Miss Ogilvy, you'll be well worth knowing.
Well, thank you.
Sit down, Noel.
Well, just for a moment. I really can't stay. Did you, enjoy London?
Yes, very much. Why are you staring at me?
Oh, I'm sorry. You remind me so much of someone.
Really?
Yes, someone very lovely. I never expected to meet anyone like that again. Time decides so many things, doesn't it? A split second of time, something happens. Two people meet accidentally. A knife slips. Someone takes the wrong turn. Anything. And without warning, a future's been created.
Evidently, you're a fatalist.
Hardly. I only know that things happen. Sometimes it seems with deliberate cruelty. Don't let anything happen to you or hurt you. Well, I've got to go now. Good night.
Good night.
What a strange man.
Yeah. He's a great guy. He's one of a kind. At least he's the only one I've ever seen.
Do you think he'll call again soon?
Honey, there's no way of telling what he'll do, ever. As Dean Harcourt would say, the signals have changed. The lights are against him right now. But he'll get the green light again. He can't miss.
June 25th, 1946, Encore Theater on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
You ever make a change and then think, why didn't I do this years ago? Well, that's how people feel about switching to Medishare for their health care, especially now with inflation the way it is. People are very happy with the savings. Most families save about $500 a month when they switch. It's a huge help when prices are going up so fast in so many other areas. And Medishare's customer satisfaction rate is double that of health insurance. It's just a different experience, and people really like that. Medishare is an alternative to health insurance. It's a community of Christians who share each other's healthcare bills, and it's been going strong for over 25 years. It really is the gold standard, the most trusted name in healthcare sharing. Find out why people love it, find out why they rave about the customer service, and find out how good it feels to save some money right now. They're super easy to talk to. Here's the number, 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE, 833-34-BIBLE.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, more of Encore Theater, June 25th, 1946.
Dean Harcourt, I came here to argue with you about your concept of everlasting life.
All right. Please sit down.
I want to know how you can justify needless death, greed, and the destruction of a career. I want to know how you can reconcile such waste with your irresistible onward drive.
Why?
I'm the Dr. Page who operated on Mrs. Dexter.
I see. You have a fine religion, Dr. Page.
I have none, so far as I know.
Religion has many definitions, at least in my dictionary, such as loyalty, devotion, honor.
Perhaps, but my dictionary defines it as a kind of opiate used by people with hurt sensibilities to dull them into drowsiness. A man needs more than that in his life, something he can get his hands on, something for which to live.
Or else something for which to die.
I can't even think of anything to die for.
Yes, come in. Hello, Phyllis.
Hello, Dean Harcourt. Hello, Mr. I had no idea you knew Dean Harcourt.
I didn't until a short while ago.
Then you must be in some trouble.
Is that why you're here?
Well, Dean Harcourt was my mother's friend. He's mine, too. I hoped we'd meet again. I wanted to ask you to explain some of the strange things you said last night.
I'm always saying strange things that I can't explain myself. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Well, I had no idea you two knew each other.
I'd met Mr. Walker last night.
Mr. Splendid, you two should make excellent friends.
I'm afraid Mr. Walker doesn't agree with you.
That's not it, Miss Dexter. We might have made very good friends, but we met a little too late.
My goodness, it's lunchtime already. You must be frightfully hungry, Phyllis.
I beg your pardon?
I said you must be hungry.
I'm not.
Sorry, I can't offer you any lunch. You eat, don't you?
Me? Oh, sure, I eat often.
When I was a young man, I was always taking a young lady to luncheon, particularly if I'd had some sort of misunderstanding. In fact, I was known as Hungry Harcourt.
You win, Dean. Shall we have lunch, Miss Dexter?
Let's.
Good. You two run along and have a good time. And by the way, if you have no other plans, have dinner with me next Friday, both of you.
I'd love to.
So would I.
And bring Miss O'Gilvy with you.
Yes, I'll ask her. Goodbye.
See you Friday.
About 8.
Bye.
You're a strange man.
Why do you say that?
One moment you're so friendly, and the next you... Why did you say we met too late?
Let's sit down on this bench a moment.
All right.
Last night, when I met you, it was like... Well, it was almost like the beginning of a world for me. I don't know how to explain it very well, except that for a moment, it was like the dawn coming up after a long, dark night. It was as though, in finding you, I'd found an answer to everything, to every heartache, to every loneliness, to every torment. I looked at you and I wanted to say, if you will spend your days with me, I'll have everything I've ever dreamed about.
You thought all that?
Yes.
Do you know what I thought? I thought, in some strange way, in one look, with one smile, this man has put his hand upon my heart and made it his. And I thought, this is the beginning of many things.
It was the beginning, but it was also the ending.
The ending? Why?
Because your name is Phyllis Dexter, and mine is Newell Page, Dr. Newell Page.
Newell Page? Page?
Yes, that's why I didn't want to see you again. At least not until I could find some way of telling you you have no reason for hating me.
No reason? You killed my mother.
No.
Well, then who did? You might at least have been man enough to accept the blame.
You don't understand. It was not
I think I do understand. Goodbye, Dr. Page.
I can't understand why he isn't here.
No, he's usually very prompt.
Well, he'll be along. Did you two have a nice luncheon the other day, Phyllis?
We didn't go to lunch.
Oh?
Why not? What happened?
Nothing.
You're not telling the truth.
You lied to me. You introduced Dr. Page as Mr. Walker.
I see.
Why?
Because I saw no reason to upset you or him. I'd do anything I could to make things easier for him.
Why should he have things made easier for him?
Phyllis,
Don't say it. Don't say it. I'm sick of philosophies and sermons and parables. I'm a human being. I have a right to hate or love.
Phyllis, what did Page do to you?
He killed my mother.
There's something else. Something within you that's been killed.
He lied to me.
You love him.
I don't. I despise him. He didn't even have the decency to take the blame himself.
Did he name another doctor?
Oh, no. How could he?
That's right. How could he? He's too decent, too honest to break the rules he plays by.
Why do you say that?
Tell her, friend.
No, I'll play according to Page's rules now. He didn't have to listen to sermons to become good. He was born that way. He'll always be that way, no matter what happens to him.
I don't understand.
You will, eventually. You see, my dear, until you have faith, you don't really love. Francis.
Yes.
I've learned much from you today. Thank you.
Will you excuse me from dinner, please, Dean Harcourt?
Where are you going?
To find him.
I'll answer the door.
Telegram for Dean Harcourt. Sign here.
Yes, thank you. It's for you.
Oh.
What? What is it?
I'm afraid you'll have to go a long way, Phyllis. He's in Montana.
Montana?
This wire's from a Dr. Lane. He says Newell asked him to wire and explain that he couldn't come to dinner. And he says he's very ill. He deliberately let a wood tick bite him. so that he could infect himself with spotted fever.
Spotted fever?
He wants to be used as a human guinea pig to test the vaccine.
Oh, no! Come on, we've got to get Dr. Endicott in a hurry. Dr. Endicott, Dr. Page is with John Lane.
On Boone Mountain?
Yes.
I won't have him in that pest hole. He'll die like all the rest.
He may be dying now. He's down with spotted fever. He gave it to himself to test a vaccine.
My fault if he dies. My fault. He mustn't die. I won't let him. We'll charter a plane. Get out there right away.
What's my temperature? It was 102.9 an hour ago. How do you feel? Not bad. Kind of groggy. Pain in the lower quadrant of the abdomen. Make a note of it. I want to see how long it lasts. Why did you ever do such a fool thing? Deliberately infecting yourself, risking your life. If I die, I don't particularly care. And you'll have learned something. There, seems to be a congestion developing in the lungs. How about taking a blood count? I'd like to see if I'm losing any resistance.
Robert Young in Greenlight, an episode of the summer series Encore Theater, June 25th, 1946 on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Mike Lindell and MyPillow offering the BOGO extravaganza right now on a whole slew of MyPillow products. Now you can find all sorts of great deals on MyPillow bed sheets, Giza Elegance MyPillow, 6-piece towel sets, Roll and Go Anywhere pillows, much more, all priced buy one, get one free. Go to mypillow.com/USA, use promo code USA, or call 1-800-951-8175 and find you some great MyPillow products. They're all available. Oh, by the way, you can also get Mike's book absolutely free with any purchase, but you have to go to mypillow.com/USA or call 1-800-951-8175 and make sure you use the promo code, the buy one, get one extravaganza, going on right now at mypillow.com.
What does it mean to be an American? Just what are our American values? Working hard to succeed, loving God, country, and family, being honest, strong, and compassionate.
Supporting our Constitution and recognizing that we are blessed to be living in America, the greatest country in the world.
Our Bill of Rights protects us, our freedoms of worship, speech, and privacy, our right to own firearms, our right to trial by jury,
our right to be free, to live our own lives without some bureaucrat telling us what to do. Most countries don't have these rights.
Want to know more? It's all there in the book. Get your own free book, The U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Then read it again, and this time share it with your friends. Our great Constitution is the basis of all of our freedoms, our inalienable rights. Get your own copy at freeusbook.com.
Brought to you by the American Media Council.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion of the summer series Encore Theater, sponsored by Shenley Laboratories, one of the people who marketed penicillin back in the day. This episode, Green Light, starring Robert Young, June 25th, 1946.
Hello, Dr. Lane. How is he?
Is he conscious?
Yes, but he's sinking.
We'll go right in. Not you, Miss Dexter. We don't want to upset him.
All right.
Hello, Newell.
Hello, Dr. Endicott. Francis, we can use you. John's getting sick of keeping my chart.
We aren't going to let you die.
You won't have anything to say about it if that vaccine doesn't work. At the present, I share the same place in society with the guinea pig. John?
Yes, Newell.
Make that blood count. Watch my temperature closely. I'm becoming stuporous.
He's unconscious.
No, not yet. Keep your nerve, Francis. You're an old hand at this sort of thing.
Yes, Dr. Page.
What's my temperature?
104.1.
Heart action. Weakening. John.
Better not talk, Mule.
Take another blood count. Temperature 104.1. Should break before it reaches 105. Can't take 105.
Francis, if he dies, I will have killed him just as I killed Mrs. Dexter.
What did you say, Dr. Endicott?
I was to blame, Phyllis. I was at fault, and I never should have let him take the blame. He's got to live. If there's any justice at all, he's got to live.
Now you know what you needed to know, Phyllis.
No. I haven't really needed to know anything since the moment when I knew I loved him.
His temperature's up to 104.2.
I'll go right in. Temperature, last 4 readings, steady, 104.2.
Dr. Endicott, can't you do something? We can't just sit here and let him die.
There's nothing we can do for him now, except pray.
Francis, Phyllis, Dr. Endicott. His temperature. Look at his temperature.
103.1.
It's licked. Phyllis, it's licked. He's going to live. He's going to be all right.
Dr. Endicott, there's a place for you out here.
No, you fellas have already done the most important work on spotted fever. You won't need me here.
But the people will need great doctors to help them through their birth. Doctors who haven't forgotten their oath to their fellow men. To share my substance with him and to relieve his necessities when required.
I guess I lost sight of what being a doctor means for a while, Newell. But I think I've got the green light now myself.
You've been listening to Dean Harcourt, too.
Yes, I've been listening. And I'm going to stay out here.
Newell, a letter just came from Baytree.
Yes, I wrote them explaining everything.
Holy smoke. They've appointed me chief surgeon at Baytree.
Oh, I'm so proud of you, darling.
Oh, Phyllis. Phyllis, how rich I am. How fortunate, how lucky, how happy, how grateful. There aren't enough adjectives to say it.
I don't like to interrupt love's young dream, but it's time for Dean Harcourt.
Oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding. For who has known the mind of the Lord? Or who hath been his counselor? Or who hath first given to him, and it shall be recompensed unto him again? For of him, and through him, and in him are all things. To him be glory forever. Amen.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Young.
Ladies and gentlemen, to sum up the spirit of this Shenley Laboratories program, this beautiful and simple prayer of the physician, written centuries ago by Maimonides, seems to me to be apt and fitting. The eternal providence has appointed me to watch over the life and death of all thy creatures. May I always see in the patient a fellow creature in pain. Grant me strength and opportunity always to extend the domain of my craft. This is the prayer of the physician. It is ages old, and yet today it is as new as the hope for a peaceful way of life for all the world. May we invite you to listen again next week at the same time when Shenley Laboratories presents Men in White, starring Robert Taylor. A great star and a great story. Good night.
Green Light by Lloyd C. Douglas was produced and directed by Bill Lawrence and was broadcast through the courtesy of Warner Brothers, who this year is celebrating the 20th anniversary of Sound Pictures. It was a Gene Holloway adaptation. Robert Young will soon be seen in the Hal B. Wallace Paramount production, The Searching Wind. This is Frank Graham speaking for Shenley Laboratories, producers of Penicillin Shenley. We're inviting you to listen to the Encore Theater next Tuesday at the same time when you will hear Robert Taylor in Men in White. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Back when penicillin was a new miracle drug. June 25th, 1946, Encore Theater on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
It's a big, bold story set in the heartland of America, along the edge of Lonely Mountain. I am open for business. And so Big William Gorgon, played by handsome Michael James, fiercely set down his Midwest roots.
Oh, darling, we're going to sell bathrobes and raise chickens.
Set his adoring wife, Wilhelmina, portrayed by beautiful Glenda Olsen.
Oh, I love our store, Will.
But they hadn't counted on Big Ralph's bathrobes and cattle store coming to town.
Oh, Will, what will we do, Will?
Will had a plan, a way of facing off against tough Big Ralph. We're going to change the face of America. We're going to advertise.
Adver what?
With print, broadcasting, and bus benches, we're going to tell people who we are and where we are.
What's a bus?
And so the story of how one man brought advertising to the heartland.
Oh, will it work?
It will. Well, my name ain't Will, Wilhelmina. You got to advertise or we'll die. And so the greatest marketing story of all time is here. Advertise or die, dopey.
Put your message on this national advertising platform. Email classicradiotheater@gmail.com. classicradiotheater@gmail.com. Time to check in on Claudia, an episode of the 1948 soap opera. This episode, June 25th, 1948.
And now, Claudia.
School days. Makes me homesick. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land
of liberty. You know, sometimes you make me feel that if I hadn't up and married you, you would still be at school.
Learning my reading, writing, and arithmetic. I'm pretty good at reading and writing.
And pretty bad at arithmetic.
Well, it's a man's work anyway. Say, did Mr. Reynolds say to meet him in front of the school at 9 o'clock?
That's what he said.
Well, he's late. Select man, you know that really is a funny name to call up. David, just what would you call Mr. Reynolds, what he is?
Mayor, I guess.
Well, then why do you call him...
They don't like to call him mayor. Because in the early days, when they were really practicing democracy up here in New England, they didn't like titles. They didn't like men to get too big for their breeches.
David, Mr. Selectman, Mayor of Eastbrook, Reynolds has arrived.
Mr. Norton, Miss Norton.
Good morning, Mr. Reynolds.
Well, you here on time. Certainly admire people who are punctual.
We were waiting for you.
You say that pleasant, ma'am, but you say it like I was late. Oh, by George, I am late. 5 minutes past 9.
Yep.
Oh, got held up with Mort Tucker down the street. Mort's out of work, and his wife was out of victuals, and his kids is out of shoes, and Mort was out to go fishing. I exchanged him a shovel for his fishbowl and set him on the town truck.
And now Mrs. Mort Tucker will have something to eat besides fish, and the little Tuckers will have shoes.
And the town of Eastbrook will get some road mending done. Mort Tucker's a good man on the end of a shovel. He's got what it takes, strong back. Oh, Mort's all right, but he's kind of shiftless. Well, let's us don't be shiftless. There's the site for the new school building across the street.
Just what kind of a building did you have in mind, Mr. Reynolds?
Well, when you've got yourself an architect, and he's a good architect, a smart man sort of sits back and lets him come up with his own ideas. And George Reynolds is just as smart as the next man.
Well, that's very flattering, Mr. Reynolds, but I'm pretty busy at the moment. I don't know whether I should undertake a new job, or I'll have the time to undertake it.
Most elastic thing there is, Mr. Norton, is time. You may have to stretch it a bit, but the world's full of time. Just plumb full of time. I learned a lesson years ago, Mr. Norton. When you want to get a job done, you go to a busy man. He'll get it done for you.
Well, you seem to have disposed of my life pretty completely, Mr. Reynolds. There's one point to be determined. Just what kind of a building do you want to erect? And would I be the best man for the job? After all, I've never built a school before.
There ain't very many as has, Mr. Norton.
But there are an awful lot of schools, Mr. Reynolds.
Lots of school buildings, Mrs. Norton. I'm not so certain how many of them are schools.
Now, there's a fine point of distinction there, Mr. Reynolds.
But you must have some ideas in mind, Mr. Reynolds.
A few. I got a piece of paper here with the details on it. 500 children.
500, so many.
Town's growing, Mrs. Norton. Town's growing. Nobody ought to be aware of that more'n you. Seems like every young couple in the town, when they got nothing better to do, they up and have themselves a child. I guess there's not much better they can do. Makes for a good, thriving, growing town.
A school for 500 children.
Yeah. This here paper sort of lays out what we decided we need. So many rooms, an auditorium, gymnasium, playgrounds. It's all here. A lot of new-fangled things. I don't hold with all of them, but they say it's progress.
Playgrounds and gymnasiums and auditoriums are necessary to a good school, Mr. Reynolds. Can't be just school rooms.
So they say, Mrs. Norton. I'm a little old-fashioned, I guess. I got some ideas about a school.
Well, that's what you'd better talk to me about, Mr. Reynolds. Your ideas.
There was a wise man once said, the greatest school there is a log. Yep, that's just what he said.
A log?
Yeah, a log. With a student on one end of it and a great teacher on the other. Couldn't be no finer school than that.
Mark Hopkins said that.
Old Mark did, eh? Yeah, smart man. Well, we got kids enough and logs to spare, but we're sort of shy on great teachers for the other end of them.
Might be a little drafty and damp in this ideal school of yours, Mr. Reynolds.
Might be, but a good education is worth a little inconvenience. Howsomever, we ain't got enough teachers to go around on that system, so we'll build us some rooms, and then we can set 20 kids on this imaginary, hypothetical log, and the best teacher we can find on the other end.
And just what style of architecture do you have in mind, Mr. Reynolds?
That, young man, is up to you. That's your department. But I aim it'll be something I'll like when we get through.
I think I've got the idea. You don't care very much what it is, as long as you like it.
That would be a way of stating it, Mr. Norton. But I have an idea we'll see eye to eye on things. That's why I'm talking to you.
And if we don't?
I can be convinced. If a buddy can make me think I'm wrong.
Well, that's fair enough, David.
Does the name East Haddam mean anything to you two young people?
You mean here in Connecticut?
Yeah, up on the Connecticut River.
Yes. David, we drove through there one day this spring.
Yes, I remember. We did.
The road bears left up over the hill?
Yeah, we stopped there and filled up with gas.
Did you notice the little red schoolhouse back in the fields on the edge of the bluff?
As a matter of fact, being an architect, I did notice it. A low sweeping roof. Looked like it had been built in the 18th century.
That's right. You didn't go up and look at it?
No, we were in a hurry to get back home.
That's too bad. And you didn't see the sign up there on the side of it?
No, we didn't. But I hardly think the style of architecture could be adapted to the building that you have in mind for Eastbrook.
Looked like a one-room schoolhouse.
Every schoolhouse is a one-room schoolhouse. I ain't talking about styles of architecture. I'm talking about building a school.
I think I'm beginning to follow you, Mr. Reynolds.
But, Mr. Reynolds, when my son goes to school, I want him to have all the advantages that we've accumulated through the years.
You have 'em, Mrs. Norton, but what George Reynolds is worrying about is that we don't leave out any of the virtues and advantages that don't appear on the surface.
But I still don't see what the connection is between a one-room red schoolhouse and this big new school you're thinking about.
Let Mr. Reynolds go on, Claudia. I think he has something in the back of his mind he wants to say.
Out of that little red schoolhouse, Mrs. Norton, for close to 200 years, a lot of fine people came, both in front of the teacher's desk and from behind it.
But not because it was a one-room red schoolhouse.
No, but I know what Mr. Reynolds means. It was an idea and an ideal of education.
Yeah, that little schoolhouse was a burning torch in the wilderness. It was the core and the heart of the community. It stood for equal opportunity and freedom and a way of life. And it taught those things that were worth dying for to get and to keep.
You're still talking about just that little red schoolhouse?
Yes, ma'am. It's too bad you and Mr. Norton didn't have climbed that hill and looked at that schoolhouse. You know what you would have seen on the sign beside the door?
What would we have seen, Mr. Reynolds?
The sign says, in this building, in the years just before the Revolutionary War, Nathan Hale taught school.
Nathan Hale? I've always thought of him as a story in a history book. Not flesh and blood. A neighbor, almost. In a little schoolhouse just a little way away in East Haddam.
And he taught well, ma'am. Yes, he taught some lessons worth learning and remembering. Down the hill from the schoolhouse is a graveyard. And in it there's graves for a lot of men who studied at those lessons, went out and died so that other men might not lose the chance to learn them, too. Yes, ma'am. Lessons that men will die for is pretty important lessons to teach.
But, Mr. Reynolds, buildings, just buildings won't do that for men.
Maybe not. But what goes into buildings will. The individuals and the communities that get together and build their schools, and what their schools mean to them. That's where the lesson begins. And I aim for we shouldn't leave that out of our new school.
I think I see what you mean.
We got us an honor roll here in front of the school. A lot of gold stars. Too many gold stars. Read the names, Mrs. Norton.
Arnold, Benjamin.
His people descended from the traitor. Guess that debt's paid.
Babcock, Peter.
His people's got their farm up about 2 miles from you.
Canzoni, Anthony.
His father works for the railroad.
Malawaski, Eugene.
He lived just 2 farms below you. Went to school in a little one-room schoolhouse on the river road.
Roschmeyer, Hans.
Good boy. They ran a little store on a farm. Father hardly speaks English. Mother doesn't speak it at all. Good people. I guess you'd say they're good Americans, too.
Reynolds, George. Mr. Reynolds. Your son?
Yes, Georgie. He was a good boy, too.
I see what you mean, Mr. Reynolds, but it's not easy to build the things you've been talking about with stone and mortar.
You do your part. You make it an honest building, simple and honest, and set it on the ground like it belonged there and meant to stay there come hell or high water.
I'll try.
You do that, and the community and all of us will try to do the rest. Yes, we'll do our share, and we'll make some fine citizens.
I'd like to have a share in this undertaking.
Well, ma'am, you're just bulging over with your share. Another kid to bring up in a fine town and a fine country.
I'd like to do more.
We'll put you in the Parent Teachers Association.
I guess I can almost qualify.
You'll qualify before the next meeting, or I don't know nothing about human nature or expectant mothers. Well, you got specifications of what we want, Mr. Norton. You draw us up some plans and call me.
I'll try to make the kind of a school you want, Mr. Reynolds.
He's a fine man, Mr. Reynolds. David, this is a fine town.
And a fine country.
It's a privilege to bring a child into it. I just don't hold with the pessimists and the disillusioned. People who say we've come to the end of the road. David, the road is just beginning.
Those gold stars on the honor roll. And the names behind them that you were reading a few minutes ago. They say that sometimes you have to pay a pretty big price for walking that road.
Should we ever have to pay that price, David? Let's do our share to be sure that it will be worth it. And Mr. Reynolds looked at his son's name there and said, Georgie, he was a fine boy. He seemed sort of certain that it was worth it.
This is the season for graduation parties, for weddings, all sorts of festivities. And this is a good moment to suggest that Coca-Cola belongs at any party, formal or informal, indoors or out. When you think of hospitality, you think of Coca-Cola, because Coke makes people welcome anytime, any place. How's your supply? Hadn't you better get Coke today?
Fine young man, that David Norton. Fine young man.
Glad you like him, Mr. Reynolds.
He's going to build Eastbrook a fine schoolhouse. We're lucky to have him.
You bet you are.
Are the Nortons really pleased with living up in this part of the country?
Very pleased. They feel it's home, though there are still a great many surprises for them. On Monday, for instance, it suddenly occurs to Claudia that... Mr. Reynolds, do you lock your door at night?
Oh, I haven't. No, in 20 years.
And after Monday night, I don't think Claudia ever will again. Locking the front door brings too much trouble.
Locking the door brings trouble. That's a new one, so I'll be around Monday. So long, Mr. King.
So long, Mr. Reynolds.
June 25th, 1948, Claudia on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Would you thank this station and support their advertisers? It's their kindness and courtesy that allows us to be with you each and every time we roll around here on your favorite station. And don't forget, if you miss a day, you don't have to miss a single show. You can hear all of our shows at my webpage, classicradio.stream. You can learn more about Classic Radio Theater collecting. You'd even buy me a copy there, and if you do that, it'll not only buy me a Dr. Pepper, but also help us buy some new great radio shows that are still being found and restored to this day. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.